Well, folks, this is it. This is our last day in Verde Beach. The first video in this series went up on December 3rd of 2020, and here we are 127 episodes in, and we're coming to an end. And how do you end something that's been going on that long, that's meant that much to you, and that I know means so much to so many other people? And I think the way to do it is just to kind of talk with you and look at the build, and I'll let you know what I was thinking when I built it and how I feel right now. No scripts, we'll just have a chat. So without any further ado, let's just jump right in. Call me corny, but I think that the best way to begin is how we normally end. So instead of pulling out, we're pulling in, and we're going to take a look at the original plat of Verde Beach. And this is Founders Park, one of the very first things that we ever built in this series. This is around episode 25. And we're going to transition into how it looks now, the second central business district of the city. I really loved this build. It was really fun bringing the Skyscrapers content creator pack into it, turning what was originally an old industrial area that became kind of a mid-rise area and turning it into the hub of this area. Lots of density, lots of pedestrian activity, lots of transit service. Speaking of which, this right here is our tram, and this tram links this part of Verde Beach, the old part of Verde Beach, all the way to our central station and our harbor district. So I'm just going to take you on a short ride while we make our way towards the downtown area. And the tram line that we were just looking at continues this way that we're heading with the camera right now, straight through the Hamilton Heights neighborhood, which is the transition zone between some of the tourism amenities that we have in the downtown area and Old Verde Beach. And we get a view of the zoo and Burning Palms National Forest, and this, a hot air balloon. And I wanted to point this out because, number one, I think that this is one of the most beautiful assets in city skylines. I always love seeing these things float above the city. But also because of this. This is where we originally met Shiny Maggie Myrtle. I love this. And now we get a look at the Sterling Family Zoo. This is how it looks now. You might recall that the zoo was rebuilt, I don't know, maybe like 30 episodes back. This is how it originally looked, and it was fine. We built the lake in there, the artificial lake, and truthfully, I was really happy with this build. But over time, as I got better with the game, I had to do something, and this is one of my favorite builds. It became something that I was really proud of. I liked it initially, but I love it right now. There's just so many layers of detail, and that is honestly just me getting better at the game. I wasn't able to build this initially. This is what I could build initially, and this is Burning Palms National Forest. It's fine. I really wish I would have gone back and fixed this, but alas, it never happened. That said, it's fine. One of the things that people were really concerned about in the comments I've seen a ton of times is that they weren't really sure if this view was preserved. That's what we were always trying to do. It is. You can still see the volcano from the park. That said, it is Burning Palms National Forest, and the way that it got its name is the number of times that it's burned down. Thankfully, we have the Verde Beach Fire Department. They're always dutifully taking care of the fires in the park. Right next to both of these, we have the Jane Goodall Institute, and this is actually an asset that was created for the build. That's basically the only things that we have in there that aren't vanilla, and I really, really appreciate them. Here is the Goodall Institute, which we improved over time as we got the Plazas and Promenades DLC, and it made a huge difference. I think the buildings are more appropriately spaced, the paths feel more grand, and just generally it feels really good. This is a difficult build though, because the campus DLC and the Plazas and Promenades DLC do not play nicely together. And this build actually goes across Semper Verde, which is that main road you see in the center, and the sports district is over there. And this district is here as well. This is the Indie Club District, 50 Cents District, something I absolutely love. I don't even know where that came from. I think it was the comments. I must have said something and it kind of grew in the comments. And eventually it became this, the 50 Cent Memorial statue, which has been relocated from the district to the financial district now that we have a stock exchange. But I absolutely adore this part of being a content creator and sharing this journey with you. Here we're taking a look at the bike highway, which is actually another build that was inspired by you guys. This is was it actually an old rail corridor, so it's kind of a rails to trails conversion, and I think it turned out really well. It's well utilized. It links old Verde Beach to downtown Verde Beach via the Goodall Institute with bicycle facilities. You can get a long ways on bikes in Verde Beach because of this. We spoke about the Verde Beach Fire Department earlier. This is Fireman's Park. This is a build that I really love as well. We've got the concerts, DLC mixed in with the Central Park asset. Looks great together. And now something that I'm not so proud of. This is Semper Verde Boulevard going to downtown. I always meant for the development of Verde Beach to be very natural, and I lost it at one point, and I decided to just paint it downtown into place. It looks great now. I love the way downtown Verde Beach looks, but this isn't how I wanted to get there. So this is a lesson I'll be taking into City Skylines 2. I don't want to do density like I did it in Verde Beach. It was wrong. But I guess we got Central Station out of it, which is one of the nice things. Central Station is really the beating heart of the city, and I love seeing all the activity here. And it goes right out the front door into this metro terminal, which we added as soon as it was available. And I absolutely love this as well. Seeing all the people congregating in this area is outstanding. And it bleeds right into our harbor district. Now, this is the original harbor district. I never really liked this, but as my skill with the game improved, as we got more content for the game, we were able to create this. And it's honestly one of my favorite builds in all of Verde Beach. We've got the monorail coming in here. We got the trams, buses, everything's coming together to create something really special. And we're going to take a brief ride on the monorail to the Hamilton experience, which is another one of my favorite builds in all of Verde Beach. And the Hamilton experience has had some times. It's burned down a lot, but we'll take a look at its original glory where it was tiny and full of life. But we took it to the next level. We redid this for the World's Fair, and this is another one of my favorite builds. There are 3 reasons why I like this area so much. The first is it's incredibly detailed. We went through and we placed every tree with a purpose. It's also very orderly and logical, while also having a mix of densities, so it just feels very organic yet planned at the same time. And then the other one is the whole purpose of this series was to try to demonstrate every single asset. We didn't get there. There are just too many of them now, but it made me think outside of the box for some of the assets, and you end up with some really interesting results if you do that. And I feel like that kind of happened in this entire area. And now we'll switch gears a little bit. We're right next to Burning Palms, and the reason I wanted to point this place out is it's the most valuable place in Verde Beach proper. It's right next to Burning Palms, right next to the university, right next to all the transit, and as a result, it's super valuable. Really interesting neighborhood. And right here is our government district, so all of our city services are basically in this area. And then right next to that, we have our stock exchange, and there were lots of jokes made about that. Most of them are probably reasonable. And then as we go along the beach, you see a couple of interesting things. We have our beach asset that we made for Verde Beach, and then a whole bunch of the towers that we added. I absolutely love the towers. I think they added a ton to the build. Speaking of the beach, we're going to get to see a little bit more detail with the beach as we move into Ruby Shores. And this was an interesting build. This is not one that I initially meant to build, but we were having so many goods issues in the downtown that I had to do something to remedy that. And my solution was to make everyone buy fish at every store. So that's how we got this. And then to make it not so weird, we added a little bit of nightlife to this end of the harbor, and it's fine. This is Verde Hills, and the whole goal with this neighborhood was to create this sight line down to the ocean, preserve those views in a public space. And for the most part, it worked. And we even preserved that up until we reached 5 Pillars Square. And this is an interesting neighborhood because it was supposed to be kind of an immigrant neighborhood. And then we got the Heart of Korea Content Creator Pack, which allowed us to convert all the buildings to actually look like they are from Korea and kind of give it that K-Town vibe. The other thing that we were able to do is bring in some of the sports venues Content Creator Pack. And I really love the way that the high school in this area turned out. Probably should have done this with more of them, but we at least got this one. And now we move on to the Sterling Arboretum, and I feel like I owe you guys an apology. We built that annex of the Goodall Institute that's in the bottom left right now a million years before the rest of the park. And it's a shame because the park turned out really well. In fact, I'd say it's probably my favorite park in all of Verde Beach, and it's likely because of this monument of the founders, which was really based on a park in Berlin. I really love the way it turned out. The decal work is really good. The plants are amazing. And then we have Sterling Pond over here, which is a build that I only put together because of all of you guys. I actually had this being a dry pond and said, we'll have to use our imagination, but you all pushed me in the comments to keep thinking outside of the box. And this is the result, a whole bunch of terrain work, a water outlet leading to a water pump, and we ended up being able to create a completely vanilla lake, and I think it looks outstanding. We have the water pump hidden a bit behind some trees and lower ground, so I think it's really good. Now, I've obviously got to talk about all of the crazy freight work that happened in this area, but I want to start out with something positive, and that is the Clearwater Southern assets that we brought into this build. This was donated to the channel. It's something that, honestly, I found it to be really moving. I would have never thought that anyone would want to do something like this for a build that I was putting together, and it means the world to me. This is something I'm honestly going to miss in City Skylines too, because I love using this in all of the builds. But this is the area that was so problematic. We redid it a few times. This might be a middle of the road iteration. This is what we landed on. It actually functions. It's not quite as crazy. It doesn't back up. Another reason it doesn't back up is this whole area was redeveloped. This is the original Drake oil site, and it was redeveloped into Drake Hills, kind of a ritzy area with fancy malls and wall-to-wall buildings. It's much nicer than it used to be, and it's right next to this. This is Solemn Palms Veterans Memorial. This is actually a build that you all requested in the comments, and again, it pushed me to think outside of the box. This map came with all of these battle trenches, and we preserved them. We were very, very careful because I didn't want to bump them because we can't draw them back in, but we tried to add some walking paths around it, a cemetery, and I think what we came up with was pretty special. And I really want to thank you guys for helping me come up with this, because I wouldn't have done it without you. And this one really takes me back. Little baby Mulligan International Airport, so tiny. We had to scrape the bottom of the ocean to get enough soil to build this thing, but I was really proud of it when we were done with it. But after we got the airports DLC, I knew that we had to do something better, especially after, kind of being the presenter for the airports DLC. So we bought a bunch of soil and built this. And this was probably one of the more controversial builds, partially because I had to bring Move It into the build, so that we could move the shipping lanes. And after that, I thought, oh, maybe we'll just bring Move It into the build. And I'm really glad that you guys pushed back on that. And as a result, it didn't stay in the build outside of moving the shipping lanes. So the net result is that we have this massive vanilla airport, and I think it looks really good. I think we've did the best with the tools that we have, and that's really what Verde Beach is all about, after all. And in front of the airport, we have this Mulligan International Airport sign that was created for the build, another asset that someone just kind of spontaneously made for the channel, and I'm super appreciative of it. This is the kind of thing that just, it's kind of mind-blowing to me. This asset, though, is one that I created. It's the CPP parking lots, and we created these before parking lots were added to the game, and I'm really proud of the asset. I think it really turned out well, and it really made the airport feel more like an airport. And now we're leaving the airport into taxi, and we get to see some of the fun things that were built over here. It's an industrial district that we're going past that was built really to try to satisfy that problem that we have with commercial goods. And now we're seeing the monorail as we drive down Sunset Boulevard towards Central Station, which is where we'll hop on a bus so we can head basically as far away from downtown as humanly possible. One of our most recent builds, we're going to be heading towards our gated community, Turmel Estates. This is a community that we built on stream, or partially on stream. And honestly, I ended up finishing most of this off camera, most of the detailing. I can't multitask to save my life. It's something I've got to get better at, especially if I want to stream more often. But I do love the way that this turned out. I really think it's a showcase of how I got better at the game. Honestly, this is a build that I could not have put together in 2020 or even 2021. Now we're over in Nova Heights, which is where we have our fusion power plant. As we were trying to insert all of the assets and monuments into the build, that was one that we were going after. We came up with this neighborhood, which I really like. It has the Lehman Institute of Technology on the other end. Really supposed to be a neighborhood for scientists. And this is the exact opposite. This is the stadium district. It was supposed to be coaches and players that lived in this area. And I really love this place. There's multi-phase development. Every little portion of the neighborhood is different. We've got some of the hotels, DLC worked into this area, and it was built all by Johnson Aggregates. And this is where we get the Verde Beach annex of Johnson Aggregates, which actually ended up being much larger than the Johnson Aggregates in Clearwater County. But really love this build, love the multi-phase development, loved making it feel so different in every portion of the neighborhood. If there were one build I could call a mulligan on and completely eliminated, it's probably this one. This is Intestine Way, which Biffa named, and I don't think that anyone likes this. I hate this. The only thing that I like about it is the dam complex. Outside of that, it was a regretful build for the most part. What was not regretful was the connectivity over here to our space complex and a portion of the Pyro Technic University, which we'll talk about a little bit later on. We needed the connectivity. It connects us to our ChirpX campus and some of our high-tech factories, our waste treatment facility over here at Oceanside, which is a really sad neighborhood that's been wiped out by multiple tsunamis at this point in time. Now, before we dive into Sterling Estates and all of the neighborhoods over there, I wanted to go along the rail corridor. It's interesting. We've rebuilt this thing probably 2 or 3 times, and it's still just as lumpy and bumpy as it used to be. Not exactly the most respectful of the topography. I tried my best. I think if there were anything I were going to redo in the build right now, it's probably this. I'd love to bring Node Controller in, smooth all this out, make everything super nice. But for a vanilla build, it could be worse. Hey, look, there's Philip. So I talked about Sterling Estates. Here we are. And I'm going to be honest, I just really love building this neighborhood. I love Karen Sterling. I loved everything about this. It was the exact opposite of what good planning should be. It's not very connected, super exclusive, and it's fun to build things that are wrong sometimes. And then contrast it with this, which is a blue-collar neighborhood, well-connected, jobs close by. This is the new Lewis Lumber Company, and the reason this is here is because Maggie Myrtle entered into a land swap with Lewis Lumber, giving them a significant amount of land in exchange for the relatively modest land that they had on the other side of this river, which was much more valuable, very close to downtown. She also preserved a portion of this land opposite that land to build this radial neighborhood, which I think was a ton of fun to build. So this whole build was supposed to basically be the anti-Sterling Estate. So put good planning principles into practice, having a mix of densities, a mix of uses, a mix of options for getting around town. So that's why there are trams here, bicycle access. There's even a ferry, so if you wanted to get up the river, you could do so. And it's incredibly walkable. And I think the overarching goal here is I wanted a good mix of people as well. So you could have a variety of income levels living in the same neighborhood. And it makes sense because it's really one end of the Pyrotechnic University. Now, this is a massive university. It's sprawling over some really challenging terrain. And as a result, I just love this campus. It was a ton of fun to put together. We have some weird connections through here. We've got different modes of transportation. We've got cable cars. And it was just a lot of experimentation and a lot of fun as a result. And at this point, we're on Palma de Fuego, and really the whole idea behind almost everything on this island is experimentation. We've got our lifestyle center here on Scarsdale, more experimentation. We've got this thing right here, which would make RCE blush. Here we have Lower Palma de Fuego National Park, and there are 2 things that are experimental here. First, we added a wildlife overpass, which turned out okay. We also added a hotel to this park, which was part of the hotel's DLC, just like this one. Interestingly, the hotel inside the park is doing better than this one right here that we're looking at, and that's because this one isn't close enough to offices. Very frustrating, but it is what it is. And now we're taking a look at Playa de Matero. This is actually based off a plan for Seaside, Florida, which I thought was really fun to put together. And then we took some LA influence, and because there was oil within this neighborhood, we added some oil pumps right in the middle of the neighborhood. Very controversial move, but it made this area completely unique, unlike anything I've ever built before, and I love that because of it. And now we're taking a look at the road that goes straight through the mountain and connects Palma de Matero to Los Verdes. And I love this build. This is probably one of my favorite things in all of Verde Beach, and it's because it's super eccentric. And at this point, I just wanted to create something totally unique, something that I hadn't really seen other people building. And this is what we came up with. And I love this. Now we're about to take a look at the Royale Casino, and I just love this. So you guys actually told me to add Lord Chirpwicks to this, and it just totally fits. This whole place, and this again is more experimentation, more attempting to use assets in ways where they were not intended to be used. So that's why we have the Eiffel Tower here, the Statue of Liberty, and this whole plaza, which is probably my favorite part of all of Los Verdes. It really turned out well. The assets meshed well together. And honestly, the entirety of this area, I think, turned out really, really well. And it's really a good capstone on everything that I've learned about Vanilla City Skylines and how you really need to be creative if you want to create something that's really interesting. And here's another example of creativity. We have this bike path that's supposed to ring the entire island, and we ended up completing that. And we were running low on nodes, so we added flowers instead to protect the cyclists from the cars. And honestly, I think I might like it more than fences. I think it looks really, really outstanding. And it's Verde Beach. I had to add this in here. So basically, there's another fire. This is at Upper Palma de Fuego National Park. But the reason I wanted to highlight this is we ended up adding additional fire helicopters as we got the new enhanced size fire helicopter depot. And honestly, the fires are mostly under control at this point. And it's kind of crazy thinking that they're under control in Verde Beach. Speaking of this park, this is the largest park in all of Verde Beach and the very final build. And I really love the way that this turned out. It has a little bit of everything in it. If you wanted a completely flat hike, you could have it. If you wanted a challenging hike, you could have that as well. And the reward at the very top is you get to see the very best view of Verde Beach and the very best view of the volcano. And if you were a mountain climber and wanted to climb straight down, you could see this, which is the Drake Oil Harbor. It was a good idea, not so great execution. You can see that there's some weird stuff happening with the water. Basically, if you overlap rocks too much, you end up with this. The water does some things. Now, just a bit ago, we were talking about the Lewis Lumber Company, and this is the way that it used to look back in the day. And eventually this was redeveloped by Maggie Myrtle, and now it looks like this. Now here's one of the interesting things. I meant to preserve all the homes, and those were supposed to be workers' housing that was built by the Lewis Lumber Company. For whatever reason, now it's European suburbia buildings. Not sure why that happened, if that's because maybe it got some influence from the Lewis Garden City, the districts combined or something, but that was not intended to happen, and that's something I would fix. Speaking of the Garden City, that's what we're taking a look at right now, and I absolutely love this build. So Linus Lewis put this together to become a developer, implement some ideas that he had, and it was really kind of a reflection of some things that I've seen in my planning career, where people that you wouldn't expect to be developers become them. Your dentist might be a developer, you never know. Now we're taking a look at the intermodal facility next to the Bob Ross Memorial Interchange, and this is a place that became a total mess, and we had a guest builder. Lee Hawkins came in and fixed this area up. I will leave a link to that video. It was excellent. He is absolutely hilarious too, so be sure to check that out if you haven't seen it already. Now, just up the highway from this intermodal facility is actually the new Drake Oil Company. So I mentioned that the Drake Oil Company has redeveloped. This is what we came up with. And truthfully, I think it makes a ton more sense, kind of out on the periphery, room to grow if they need it. And I really enjoyed this build. I think that this is one that turned out really well after giving it some more thought. Sometimes you just got to redevelop things. This right here is a large industrial complex that we built pretty close to that facility, along with some of the new grown-in industrial. So this might be the only zoned industrial in the entire city right here in the Weaver Industrial Park, which is right next to Myrtle Park. This is where Myrtle came from. This is the working class neighborhood right next to this I-10 industrial park. This is the original industrial area in all of Verde Beach, and we redeveloped it, got rid of some of the uses that didn't make sense. And it's a lot of commercial, some industrial, and there's still an intermodal facility over here. But it's right across from the Stadium District, so we cleaned it up a bit. And speaking of the Stadium District, here it is. And I think out of all the builds in Verde Beach, this is kind of the one that surprised me, that ended up being really popular. People really like this one, but truthfully, this is one of my favorites as well. We mixed in some of the plazas and promenades assets, and we have Philip riding a bike right here to get on the train. There's a whole bunch of transit here. There's a lot going on. And there's this interchange, which has so many layers to it, so many things happening here. We've got dedicated bus lanes on the highway. We've got trains, cargo, and passenger. Everything is separated. Everything is organized. Everything is logical. And I loved that build so much. And that's it. That is the end of the road. We have looked at every single build in Verde Beach. So I really want to end this by thanking you. Every single person who's watched the video, every single channel member, every single patron, anyone who's ever been a patron or channel member, anyone who has ever taken an interest in any of these videos, everyone in Discord, especially the channel moderators, every single creator that I've worked with, my family, everyone. It's hard to express how much this has meant to me. And I appreciate you all being along for the ride with me, cheering me on along the way, giving me support, providing ideas and advice. It means the world to me. And I want to thank you for that, because this has been a huge part of my life the last few years. But it's not the end of the channel, even if it is the end of the series. So thank you all so much for joining me. I can't wait to see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.